Welcome to those of you that are just logging in. We'll get started in about 1 minute. All right, and since it is the top of the hour and we want to be mindful of your time, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And it's with great pleasure that I welcome you and would like to introduce you to our webinar today. This webinar is titled Creating Welcoming Schools Where Enthusiastic Readers Thrive and Attendance Soars. And we're happy that you're with us. My name's Julie Sauve. Oh, sorry about that. My name is Julie Sauve. I am a professional learning specialist here with Harmony Academy, and I'm thrilled to be with you. And also, I just want to let you know I'll be serving as the moderator for today's exciting webinar brought to you by Harmony Academy at National University. Oh, sorry, my mouse is being a little bit touchy. A little bit about our webinars, what you can expect for today. So we host these webinars monthly, and they're designed as a place where thought leaders and educators can share best teaching practices and tools to support social and emotional learning. These presentations are the opinions and contents of our guest speakers and may not necessarily be a direct representation of Harmony. We also want to let you know that we will send out a recording and a copy of the slide deck after the webinar today. And as we are on a Zoom webinar today, please remember that you can submit any questions that you may have into the Q&A box, and then we will be responding today throughout the webinar. And briefly, I want to share with you the objectives. So during our webinar today, we're going to explore some root causes of chronic absenteeism and hear about a range of strategies and solutions for promoting attendance. Our hope is that you'll leave the webinar with actionable steps and best practices that you can implement into your schools or the organizations that you work to help mitigate chronic absenteeism. And at the end of the webinar, we're excited to share with you some of our new premium print products to help you level up your Harmony experience. So before I introduce our guest presenters and panelists to you, we're going to take a moment to get a quick poll just to see who's with us today. So in a moment, a poll should pop up. And if you wouldn't mind taking a moment to respond to that. And are we able to see the poll? Can somebody give me some feedback?
Yeah, it looks like it's not launching right now. So why don't we have everyone in the Q&A share their role?
Great. If you could just pop in the Q&A, just go ahead and share your role and where you're coming from today if you would like. We'd love to know who's with us. Wow, we have some people from outside of the United States. Exciting. We have somebody coming to us from Portugal. We're great. I'm glad to have you with us. Looks like we've got some school administrators, social workers, directors of social emotional learning for districts or for school systems, social workers, those that work out of school organizations, elementary school teachers. And so it's pretty exciting. Middle school teachers as well. It looks like we are just excited to have a variety of different educators with us today coming from diverse backgrounds, and we are super excited to be here specifically to hear from Dr. Douglas Fisher. And I just want to say what an honor it is to introduce Dr. Doug Fisher to you today. He is an esteemed researcher and author. He is also a professor of educational leadership at San Diego State University. He is also a teacher leader at the Health Science High and Middle College, which is an award-winning open enrollment public school in City Heights neighborhood of San Diego, and he co-founded that in 2007. Dr. Fisher's areas of interest include instructional design, curriculum, development, and professional learning. and he has published over 250 books, chapters, and articles focused on school improvement, and he was elected to the Reading Hall of Fame in 2022. So that's a little bit about Dr. Fisher. Dr. Fisher, welcome. We're grateful to have you with us,
Thank
and
you.
I'll turn the time over to you.
Awesome. And I have two colleagues with me. Click. There we go. The first, Demetrius Davenport, who I've known for many years. An honor to work alongside of you at Health Sciences High. Demetrius has had several roles. We call him the Dean of Students because he's in charge of a lot of things, with especially students who need a little extra love. But he also oversees all of our attendance efforts, including home visits, wellness checks, and things like that, and has worked with the teachers to create a climate that invites students into their learning. So he will be sharing some of his experiences with you all in a little bit. And then I also have Sarah Ortega. Hi, Sarah. Sarah was an elementary educator and coach for many years, and we got to know each other better pretty well during the pandemic. And then Sarah is on loan from her school district to lead the instruction and support for multilingual learners here, and then does consulting all around the world, helping teachers improve their practices. Again, creating those welcoming environments where students want to be present. So we're going to do a little bit of sharing, then we're going to do a little interaction, and then we're going to hope that you'll have some questions for us that perhaps we can answer for you as we interact with one another. All right, so let's get started. I will need to have screen share, and thank you. There we go. So when we think about attendance, we want to create schools where students thrive. And part of that is getting them there. Now, getting there is an important part of it. It's not the only thing. Because if we get them there and then things are boring or awful, it doesn't really matter. They're not going to thrive anyway. But we want our students to thrive. And we've all seen the data on attendance. We all know the value of being at school. And the percentages that like, if you're at 90%, and people think, like 90%, that's an A. It's 3 weeks of missed school. And that's a lot of learning time. That is a challenge. And then if you drop it to 80%, you've missed 6 weeks of school. You have missed almost the whole quarter. So we know that we want kids there. We want learners to be present. And I did see some of the comments about compulsory, you have to be at school. We have similar laws, but parents call kids out sick. There's some truancies there. So there's reasons, there's things that happen. So if you look at the data on the causes of chronic absenteeism, these are from Attendance Works, these are the pre-COVID conversations we were having around chronic attendance, which was way lower than it is today. So chronic absenteeism, they organized it into these 5 categories, if you will. There are barriers, illnesses, family responsibilities, transportation, traumas, food and housing. So there are barriers to being at school. Then they had a second category called aversion. Students struggling at school, an unwelcoming school climate, the challenges of social and peer things, disciplinary practices where kids are sent away from school even though they want to be there, those things. Then there's disengagement, the lack of a challenging cultural responses, instruction and curriculum, not meaningful relationships, lack of enrichment. You can read some of these. When students fail to earn credits, for example, they think, why should I go to school? It's already, it's already November and I'm already failing my classes. There's nothing I can do to make up. And then there's these misconceptions that exist out there that, absences are not a problem if the parent approves it, or 2 days a month, that doesn't really hurt, or kids and families not knowing how many total because they lose track of it, and people believing it only matters in the older grades. So these were the barriers that were identified pre-pandemic. In 2024, there was a review done around what are the causes or what are the reasons for chronic absenteeism in 2024. So a very recent investigation about what is causing the chronic absenteeism that exists in our school systems now. And they had these categories that they generated about why students are absent from school. And the first category were academic difficulties, and you saw that pre-pandemic. When students don't find the support they need to learn, they don't want to be in that environment. And it's really logical if you think about this. None of us want to spend our time in places that make us feel bad about ourselves. Why would I want to be a place where I only experience failure after failure after failure? I will go find a place where I can experience success. And so academic difficulties and the lack of academic support contributes in the post-pandemic world in a significant way to attendance problems. The second category they identified was bullying, that students miss school. A major reason why students miss school is that they are being bullied at school and they don't want to be there. Again, it's logical. If we don't have systems in place to address this violent, discriminatory, harassing behavior, then students aren't going to come there. They're not going to put up with this, nor will their families. I had a recent family contact me about a middle schooler. I don't work at a middle school, but this family contacted me, and their daughter had been bullied and bullied pretty badly. And the solution that the school had was to take her out of advanced orchestra and put her in basic orchestra because the bullies were in advanced orchestra. And that makes no sense to me. Why? That's not a solution to bullying. And now the kid doesn't want to go to school. Not a surprise. The third category were health-related issues, and these are valid concerns that students have health concerns, health issues, including illnesses that are temporary and illnesses that are longer term, and a valid reason for not being at school. Another category were socioeconomic challenges, things that financially, because of the way their lives are, prevented them from going to school, which includes the need to work for some adolescents to earn money for their families. That's socioeconomic challenge. But it's also smaller things like not having clean clothes and things like that in the socioeconomic challenges. At our school, and Demetrius might talk about this, we have washers and dryers available because we have a need to ensure that that is not a barrier for students to come to school. The next category they talked about was mental health, overall well-being, depression, anxiety, and students' mental health. And there is some documentation that there's an increase in the recognition and probably prevalence of mental health challenges for young people right now. And we have to figure out how to support young people and their mental well-being. And the last category they talked about were family circumstances. Some kids have to take care of their siblings and they miss school. And when school systems don't line up their breaks, for example, it causes increased problems in absenteeism. So in San Diego County, there are all these different spring breaks. So if you have, and we have non-unified districts, some of you know that in California. So if you have a high schooler, the break may be different than your elementary school kids. And so as a result, the high schooler might have to stay home and take care of siblings because the family has to work. So those are some of the situations in families. All of these topics, all of these issues need to be understood. We have to get to the root causes of the problem with absenteeism. There is a difference of a kid who won't come to school because they experience failure day after day after day, and a kid who's being bullied. There's a difference there. And the school system, if we care about kids getting to school and we care about what happens when they're in those classes to learn, we have to remove all of these reasons we can. A small percentage, it turns out, are health-related issues, a very small percentage. So if you were to look at the data, it is only a few percentage points that we would be having kids absent if it was truly only their health. All these other things are what's contributing to the 90% rate or 80% rate, is all these other things that make school an unwelcoming place for young people to be. So I'm going to quote Lois Lowry from the book The Giver. I feel sorry for anyone who's in a place where they feel strange and stupid. And if that's your experience, you feel strange and stupid, why would you want to go to that place? That's part of our attendance challenge is people, kids, young people feel strange and stupid when they go to school and they don't want to be there. That contributes to the sense of belonging. Do I belong? Do I feel a sense of membership? Jeff Cohen at Stanford defines belonging as a feeling that you are part of a larger group where you are valued and respected and you have something to contribute. I really like that definition of belonging. It's a feeling. It's an emotional thing to feel. It's social emotional. Belonging is a feeling. It's feeling that you're part of a larger group. That larger group values and respects you. And he argues, super importantly, you have something to contribute. Belonging is just not being part of a group. You're actively contributing to that group. Now, another researcher, Eric Carter, studied the dimensions of belonging, and he argues there are 11 factors that contribute to our sense of belonging. Now, at our school, we took these apart, and Demetrius might talk about this, or Sarah might talk about this later. Sarah might talk more about her elementary experience, and Demetrius more in high school, but, or vice versa. We may talk about it. But we took these apart in a staff development session, and we took each of them and said, what would it look like, sound like, and feel like if students had this aspect of belonging, if they felt invited, if they felt known, if they felt involved, if they felt needed? What would that look like, sound like, and feel like? And each team created these, and we created a master list, a big list of all of the things that our students would experience across these 11 dimensions. And I share these 11 dimensions because I think they're a powerful way of helping us take an inventory. Now, I know I'm supposed to be talking about students and their attendance, but it goes to grown-ups as well, because adult attendance is also problematic in school right now. We're seeing fewer adults present. And if they don't feel like they belong, if we don't feel like we belong, we're not going to show up to work either. We'll do the minimum that we need to do. So all of these factors, I argue, affect all of us, not just minors. Do I feel known? Do I feel accepted, involved? Do I feel heard at work? Do I feel needed at work? Each of these factors contribute. So I encourage you to take these 11 dimensions and do a self-assessment. Where is your school? Do students feel welcomed whenever they show up? So if they're on time, they're probably getting welcomed. But when students are late, what happens to them? How are they treated? Do they go to the front office? Do they go to a clerk, a well-meaning person who tells them, you're late? And the young person says, really? Is that the first exchange they have? How are they greeted in a classroom when they're like, no, I don't want kids late. I don't want them to be late. But how they are treated when they are late sends a message to them. So we started asking a bunch of students. I'll show you some students from our school. We started asking students about what it feels like to belong and what it feels like when you don't belong.
When I don't feel it, like belonging, it's like a kind of a fear that goes in, like I feel it deep down.
I just feel uncomfortable and isolated from everybody else.
Lonely.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel like I want to close myself off. Like I'd stop talking. I'll like probably go sit in the back and try to take up less space as much as I can.
One of the things that I found hard to make me feel like I belong is my race, just because I'm mixed. So I've heard people talk about me like out in public, like kids saying, oh, he's probably adopted or something.
My mom was like, yo, you can't let them know that you're Muslim or Arab because of the negative stigma that the Western world portrays around Middle Eastern and Islam. And don't let them know, like, if they ask you're American, you don't speak Arabic, you only know English.
You know, every culture person has specific food and like the smell. And like other kids would just make unnecessary comments talking about, oh, why does it smell like that? When and actually like it actually tastes really good.
Yeah, it's like another thing with the ignorance, you know? It made me want to hide that part of myself.
I was at my convention center for my competition, and just walking up from the hotel room, I encountered some guys from a different school, probably a different state, and like it was just remarks about like my sexual orientation. I knew that like being gay and like a minority, I was already like on the outskirts.
The teachers, they were supposed to help, but it was more like they just didn't pay attention. It was more like they didn't care. It was more like, oh, they're just kids. That's how I feel like they would think. Yeah.
It's hard feeling like you don't belong.
And that student says, it's hard when you feel like you don't belong. Why would you want to go to a place where you feel stupid and strange? That's part of the attendance problem. That sense of belonging, that sense of being there. Now, I want to highlight the academic support because we know a percentage of our students don't show up because they feel like failures academically. They may like the school, they might like the social aspect of the school, but if we make them feel stupid day after day after day, if we make them feel like they are not going to be successful, why would they continue to show up? None of us keep going to a workplace where we experience failure all day long, every day, all the time. We would find a different job. And I think that's what our students are doing. They're looking for other places that reinforce them. So I'm going to highlight one aspect of belonging that is supported. How do we provide sufficient academic support for students? So I put 5 quotes in here. These are 5 quotes that are from the literature, from professional articles around scaffolding and how do we provide appropriate scaffolds. There's no right answer to this, but I'm giving you a sense of what's resonating with you. Which ones are kind of thinking like that makes sense to me. So just take a look at these and think about which one is resonating with you. Number 1 is the first time scaffolding, the word scaffolding, had ever been used in education. Educational Scaffolding by Woodbruner and Ross. This is the first time they said, let's talk about scaffolding, temporary supports we put in place to assist the learner. And then you can see the other ones about different ways to think about educational scaffolding. Adults controlling elements of the task that are currently beyond the learner's capacity, permitting that learner to concentrate and complete the elements that are within the range of competence. That's what we're trying to do. And by the way, that feels really good. And when I know my teachers are supporting me, and when I know my teachers are there to scaffold, provide that support, I feel good because our brains really enjoy experiencing success. Yes, we do learn from failures, absolutely. But failure all day long, every day, you start to change the narrative about yourself. We need some wins. We need to be successful. When you experience success, it feeds that pleasure pathway, the reward pathway in your brain. Let me give you 2 examples of scaffolding, 2 video clips, and think about, notice the difference in scaffolding. Which would make you want to come to school more? Well, there was the potential for scaffolding in that one. Unfortunately, a lot of our students experience that. And if you experience that over and over again, why would you come to school? Now, this next one talks really fast. There's captions on the bottom, but watch the level of scaffolding in this next video.
And wanted to land his first backflip ever. So I had him jump to his back. That way I could watch his form on his takeoff to make sure he was jumping as high as he could. And right away I noticed a few things that he could do a little bit better. So I had him lay down and just kind of focused on a few body positions that he needs to hit as he jumps. And right away he was doing better. Then I explained what a tuck was and how that if he pulled his knees in during a backflip so hard that I could pick him up off the ground, he would do a lot better. And immediately he was jumping so much higher that we added another map. Then I had him roll back to his feet off this block to kind of practice what it feels like to land a backflip. And then we mixed both those drills together where he jumped up to his back and then rolled to his feet. And the reason for that is because the first time I go to spot him on a backflip, that's exactly what I'm gonna have him do. Jump to his back and then roll to his feet. Once he was comfortable with that, I just did a little bit less work each time and had him put more power until he could do the backflip onto this mat by himself. From that point, all we had to do was just take the mats away. So one by one, we did it on a thinner and thinner mat until there were no mats left. And that is how he learned how to backflip in one day.
Impressive. Now, what I noticed about this instructor is this instructor takes a little piece of the task, scaffolds it, and then removes the scaffold. the definition of success was not do a backflip on the first thing. The definition of success is jump on your back to this mat, jump higher on the mat, jump higher on the mat, tuck. There were different levels of success, proximal levels of success. And the learner said, I can do that now. I can do that now. I can do that now. And then they chained them together. So this kid learned how to backflip. Would you want to go to a school that convinced you that you could do a backflip and then had you experience a backflip in one day? I think so. Why do we show up? Because we like to experience success, and to experience success in these academic adventures, we need support. We need scaffolds from our teachers. Now, Nancy and I have been working on this model of instruction for a very long time. We drew these triangles in 1997. They've been around a really, really long time. It's how we think through scaffolding at the lesson level. So we drew the triangles to try to show there are times when the teacher's doing more of the work and there are times when the students are doing more of the work. Some people interpret them that you have to go top down, focused, guided, collaborative, independent. We've never said that. We've never written that. You can go in any order that makes sense. What we argue is that every lesson needs a chance for students to talk to each other, student-to-student interaction. That's collaborative learning. If we go up one, every lesson needs some amount of guiding the thinking of students without telling them what to think. That's around prompting and cueing. Every lesson has some sort of focused instruction where students get input, direct instruction, modeling, scaffolding, lecture, input. And then at the bottom, students get time to practice and apply what they've been taught. These are 4 major moves that increase the likelihood that students will learn. And when we do these 4 things, in whatever order that makes sense for based on what you want students to learn, when we do these things, we are more likely to get students to learn. And by the way, they feel good because we're intentionally releasing responsibility to learners. It's not formulaic and top down. It's based on what our students need. What are the next moves we make to get students to learn? So high quality learning, academic support increases students' sense of belonging, and that increases their willingness to come to school. Another aspect, a couple comments on this, and then we'll have more of a group discussion. Teachers' credibility. How credible we are with our students contributes to their wanting to be around us. I'm not talking about student-teacher relationships. That's important. On top of that, bigger than that, is teacher credibility. Do I trust my teacher? Do I feel like I'm learning from my teacher? Is this an environment that's dynamic for me? And do I feel connected to my teacher? That sense of immediacy, connected and relatedness. When these 4 are present, we are much more likely to vote with our feet and show up in school. Trust, the big part. Trust is the gear, the process, the connections we feel with one another. Students need to feel trust with their teachers. They need to know the teachers have their best interests at heart. That's benevolence. The teachers are honest and open. The teachers are reliable, and the teachers are competent in the relationship. When students see, I trust this teacher, I am learning from this teacher, I trust the school leader, I trust my counselor, I trust the people in the front office. When there's that level of trust that I am not going to be harmed and that the person is reliable and honest with me, that level of trust opens the door for the other things, that teacher credibility part. And to quote Annette, 9 times out of 10, the story behind the misbehavior won't make you angry, it'll break your heart. And when we think about the misbehavior, in this case, we're talking about is attendance problem. A whole bunch of the attendance problem is really not illness. Yes, some students get sick, but a whole percentage, a large percentage of the attendance problem has nothing to do with physical illnesses like COVID and flu and those things. It has to do with the climate and culture of the school, how it feels for young people to be there. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to invite my colleagues to add to this conversation. And I have a bunch of questions that we prepared. The first is, I give my overview. The first is, based on your experience, can you share some recommendations for actionable steps and best practices for educators or leaders to implement in their school to address chronic absenteeism? And I thought we'd start with Demetrius, the high school version, and then we'll have Sarah.
Hi, thank you. Yes, so I can't stress enough the need and importance of communication as a school and as a team and partnering with families in combating chronic absenteeism. For us, we communicate daily in the form of our daily attendance huddles. This has been key for us in the way we communicate because it allows us to focus on early interventions and creating action plans based on the attendance data that we analyze. These huddles for us, they're important because they take on the multi-tiered system of supports model and allows our team to discuss which supports are needed for that particular day or that week. The way it works is we developed an attendance team that consists of a small group of staff members that carry various roles throughout the school. We meet for every day, 10 to 15 minutes, and we look at trends that are related to attendance, and we discuss actions that were taken the previous day and decide whether or not further supports are needed. So as an example, a student's name will come up as an overall attendance concern during the meeting, and someone will take that role or follow up, and an action plan is created. Part of that action plan could be a one-on-one conversation with the student. It could be a phone call. It could be a parent meeting or a home visit. Sometimes upon having those one-on-one conversations, you may learn that there's new financial issues that have come up as a family, and now there's transportation issues that happen. And now as a team, we can look at that and say, okay, we can go get the student a bus pass, we can go get a trolley pass, we can schedule visits so that we can go and pick up the student and bring them to school. A number of things that showcase we're in this as a partner. We're in it for support. We're not the enemy. We want you to come into a welcoming environment and come to a place that you can call home. Dr. Fisher shared earlier, we have a student that, missed a certain amount of days because he was embarrassed about the clothes that he's wearing, and they had issues with their washer and dryer. We have a washer and dryer here. So therefore, we can schedule a plan after we meet as a team and work with the family. They can bring us their clothes. I'll wash the kids' clothes on Monday. He has a set of clothes here so that we could prevent him being pushed away. And with him seeing that, he sees confidence in himself. He sees confidence in a school that says, you know what, I have a second family that is caring about me, and the fact that they took time into knowing and seeing me as a person. They see that I'm here, and he's ready to learn, and he's realizing that he's not getting pushed away. Another aspect to having daily attendance huddles would be the addition to inclusion of grade level teachers, a grade level teacher representative. It's powerful to have the teachers involved because they create a culture of collaboration, and that teacher is a part of a solution. There may be a student that is showing up to school every day but missing a particular class. So therefore, we can get down to the whys of that particular situation, and the teacher can be a part of creating a supportive plan for that individual student.
Thank you. And yes, Sarah.
Yeah, so I'm listening to Demetrius, and he has some really great points in terms of how these daily huddles can start to help us uncover some of the patterns, some of the reasons why students are having some attendance issues. And at the elementary level, sometimes our youngest learners, they might tell their family members or their guardians that they want to stay home from school because they're feeling sick, right? But as Dr. Fisher mentioned, there definitely are some valid health-related absences, but that's a very small percentage of students. And so sometimes there are other factors that play here, like Demetrius is talking about, that when you start to uncover some root causes to why students are feeling uneasy. And that uneasy feeling that students are having might manifest in some stomach issues or some headaches, but it could really be that students are actually experiencing some bullying. Perhaps they don't have strong friendships. It could be that they're struggling academically and they're looking to avoid those feelings of anxiety and frustration. So just to keep in mind that when we have those reports that a student is feeling sick or a student is sick frequently, that it could be because a student is reacting to their emotions or their perception of how connected they feel with the school, with their teachers, with their peers. And so one strategy that can really help foster a sense of belonging and connectedness is to use conversation cards. Harmony, for example, has quick connection cards, and these types of questions are just perfect for a community circle. And the important thing here, I think, for teachers and counselors and after school or before staff members to remember about these quick connection cards is that you want to listen to student responses so that later on in the week or later on that day, you can check in or make a comment to what a student said specifically during that community circle. So for example, if a student mentions that they are looking forward to going to the skate park in the afternoon, right? You want to make a mental note or even a physical note to make sure that you ask about that experience the next day. Because really what we're doing there is connected to building that teacher credibility piece, right? It's not just saying that we care, but we have to show that we care. And we can do that in part by really listening to what the children are saying and remembering that information so we can connect back with them on things that they said later on.
So I have follow-up for Demetrius. One of the things that some visitors said is, how do you make sure that this daily meeting about attendance doesn't just go all negative? And rather, how do you make it focused on actions that people are going to take?
So what we do is when everyone gets together, the number one thing is we bring a student's name up and we realize, okay, there's certain days that we're missing. If the student is missing particular classes or a student misses a certain number of days, I'm able to then reach out to the families. We can delegate anybody to go have these one-on-ones, and we focus on having the conversation based around social and emotional learning. You know, what is the reasons? We're not meeting with a negative, talking about the social and emotional learning aspect of it. We are getting down to the root of the problem. And a lot of the stories that we come up with, and a lot of stories that we come across are individuals that are seeking help and they don't have the answers of what's going on. They've never been promoted with the ability to ask for help. And we want to bring them into an environment that says, hey, I hear you. Hey, I see you. Hey, you are a part of our family and we want you here every day. And the common theme that students that I'm coming up with that students are having is they've always been pushed out of the door. Every day they've walked through the door, they have said, hey, everyone, look at me. I need your help. And there's been adults that have walked past them every day. There's adults that haven't looked at them twice, haven't said their name, and it's pushing these students out of the door. So they're saying, hey, you're not welcoming me into an environment. So that's what we've decided to focus on, especially for our huddles, is how can we be a support to the family rather than a negative.
Thank you. My next question, in the context of creating supportive and sustainable education environments, what role do you see for programs that promote life skills, social emotional learning, things like that to reduce chronic absenteeism? I think we'll start with Sarah at the elementary level this time. What's on your mind around those kinds of initiatives and programs?
Yeah, so I think that programs that support life skills or social emotional learning are key to reducing chronic absenteeism because many of those kids are missing school because of their emotional well-being. But the good news there is that we can teach students about their emotions. We can teach students how to regulate their emotions. There is this one harmony lesson. I think it's a third grade lesson. It's one of my favorites because the goal of the lesson is to help students become more self-aware and understand how our emotions, our thoughts, our actions, how they're all connected to each other. And that together we can work to recognize, to be more self-aware of these connections when we have different scenarios, different situations that come up. And so I think that those social emotional learning programs and those life skill can really support in students learning how to self-regulate. And I think that we can use really great literature too. And so we can do a dual focus, because sometimes what you'll hear teachers say is there's not enough time to kind of add that into the school day with all of the kind of standards that I have to cover or the curriculum map that I'm supposed to be following. But really, one of my favorite ways to explore social emotional learning is through literature, right? There's so many books that we have in our classrooms that can serve more than one purpose. We can focus on our literacy skills as we read them, but we can also analyze the emotions of characters, the decisions that they make. And so I really love the idea of taking stories that students are reading and being able to analyze them and kind of collectively create norms even for the classroom based on some of the lessons and the morals of different stories that we read.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And sorry, Demetrius, I just think about what you were saying about how we help kids project into those texts. And I want to comment at the elementary level, there is quite a push to increase informational text. And I know kids need to read more about the physical, biologic world. But you make a point around the value of literature, and literature allowing us to project into the emotional lives of characters, like the action this character took. Would I take the same action? Would I not? So I think we need to make sure that students are encountering complex characters who face ethical dilemmas, who make decisions appropriate for that grade level. So Demetrius, you were going to add to that.
Yes, I was gonna discuss, the emphasis on school culture. That's huge for me. And that's the question that I ask any schools when discussing the conversation of attendance. What is the culture of your school, and how do you meet students with attendance? Because how you meet students with attendance is going to be how they're going to respond. So I like to remind myself and remind my colleagues that we have a chance to make or break a student by the very start of their morning.
Yep.
How are you taking it upon yourselves to make a difference in those particular students' lives? So for me, we looked at it and said, like Dr. Fisher had mentioned earlier, students are met with disappointment. They're met with anger when they show up late. When we have students that are traveling 3 hours just to get to school. You may have individuals that, like me, when I was growing up, I had to take on a parent role, and I had to get my brothers and sisters together in the morning, and I had to make breakfast. I had to make sure I was eating. And then with all of that, and still made the effort to get to school, the last thing I want is to have the door shut in my face. Mm-hmm. So here at our school, there was no issue for us to just say good morning. We're happy to have you. Ask them how their morning was. Give the students energy that promote us being a partner with them in their journey rather than an enemy. So as a school, because our staff is trained to notice different points of contact. So we scatter our staff throughout the school, and we welcome students. I personally meet and greet students at the front door. They are going to get a follow-up. I'm going to make a handshake with them. I'm going to call them by their name so that they realize, hey, you have a partner in your journey into these doors every day. And then we utilize our attendance huddles to notice, hey, I've noticed that this student walked through the door today, they were upset, or I've noticed that this student has come late 5 days in a row this week. That's what the attendance huddles are for. Outside of the attendance huddles, though, that's the time for us to build these relationships and build the character of our students so that we are welcoming them into a place that they can call home.
Beautiful. And I love you say a place they can call home. This place is their home away from home. A place where you are loved, welcomed, and known. Thank you for that. Okay, my last question. Can you share a couple key strategies, initiatives, ideas that have had some promise in mitigating this absenteeism challenge we have?
I can go ahead and start with that.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so when I discussed talking about school culture, building relationships is a big part of that. It's a vital piece in knowing, where your school is at and what your school needs to move forward as a positive. So we created a program called the Mentor Mentee Program, and the kids like to call it the M&M program. And what that is it's ensuring that each student has at least one adult on campus they can connect with and be able to go to for support. So at the beginning of the year, each of the staff members are assigned a group of 10 or more students for divvied up across the entire student body for each staff member. And the kids are they're called our family group. And it assists in the social and emotional aspect of school because you are allowed to meet new individuals, meet new staff members, and then on top of that, next year you'll have a different cohort so that there isn't a student that's on campus that says, there isn't an adult that I connect with. There isn't a student that I connect with. These are in multiple grade levels and multiple teachers that they're seeing. So the M&M program, it was developed to prevent the situation of a student saying, I'm lost. I don't have anywhere to go. That's what that was about. And building these situations, building these practices and steps, they allow for the one-on-one, they allow for the family aspect, and they allow for the social and emotional support in your schools. These are all efforts that are in place to just build these powerful connections. And that's one more student that I'm allowed to keep in the building that I'm not pushing away.
Thank you. And I'll just comment that the M&Ms, as the students sometimes say, have developed into another ally. And I watch sometimes people say, who's blank's mentor?
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's something I want to commend or something I'm concerned about, there's a recognition that each kid has at least one adult connection. Mm-hmm. And when things occur, that adult needs to be in part of the conversation. And that adult might be the custodian. That adult might be the vice principal. That adult might be a classroom. It doesn't matter. It's an adult that gets to know you.
Yeah.
And Sarah, what would you add?
So a couple things. First, I really love how Demetrius is really talking about how it is important that the students are treated by staff and how that connection could be the classroom teacher, but it's not always the classroom teacher, right? It's going to be so many different opportunities. And that idea of greeting students at the door, I know it is maybe a more common practice in elementary spaces, but it's an equally powerful practice at the secondary level. I know that there's so much research out there that shows us that secondary students, it's their strong connection with teachers that has a huge impact. And so having teachers greeting students at the door at kind of all of the different grade levels is a really powerful practice. And then whichever one of these kind of practices or approaches that we consider kind of taking back to our school sites, I think it's always also important for us to think of, like, how do we measure the impact of whatever intervention it is that we are choosing to kind of take on. And so as we're thinking through different kind of strategies or interventions that we might take back, thinking about how we're going to measure the impact. And I think a really important way is to hear student voice, right? When I'm thinking back to what you were saying, Doug, about teacher credibility and this idea of the student's perception of their teacher being caring and trustworthy and dynamic, that research on teacher credibility really tells us that we can kind of leverage that research and kind of create some student-facing questions that help us to really understand what the students are thinking and asking them questions like, does your teacher love to teach? Do you feel like your teacher cares about you? Knowing that kind of information can help us really then determine the types of strategies or initiatives that we are deciding to kind of take on, and then the impact of those as well.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yep. I just want to emphasize what you said. There is a surprising amount of research on the effect of greeting students at the door. And I know some people are dismissive of that. And I saw something on TikTok of teachers have better things to do with their time. Tell me what? Because when I read the research on this, there was a large scale study done that said it reduced problematic behavior by 18 percentage points and increased engagement by 20 percentage points. Well, that's a pretty low cost intervention if it gets that kind of an outcome. And when kids are greeted at the door and they know they're valued and they're welcomed, it contributes to their sense of belonging, which we know contributes to their overall willingness to be at school. Mm-hmm. However, We have talked a lot, and I know we need to pause here and turn this back over to our colleagues at Harmony. And I hope you did see the comment that was put in the chat. Harmony's no-cost digital resources, they are free. We use them at our school, even though they were technically developed for elementary school. Those quick connect cards, those relationship buildings, we use them here as well. And I know, Sarah, in your elementary days, you use them frequently as well. Again, no cost. You can download them for free and get started. Back to the Harmony folks.
All right, well, thank you, Dr. Fisher, Demetrius, and Sarah, for the wisdom that you shared with us. I will open this up if there are any other burning questions that you had that Dr. Fisher did not answer, or you have for Sarah or Demetrius. We do have a couple of minutes if anybody wants to pop anything into the chat. Dr. Fisher, there was one question that came up at the beginning specific to the study that you showed of the reasons for chronic absenteeism. And the question was just if you differentiate, if there was a differentiation in the study between the elementary, middle, and high school levels. Could you speak to that very quickly?
Really wasn't, although they said bullying increases as kids get older. They acknowledge bullying in elementary school, but the bullying seems to accelerate, especially cyberbullying. Attendance for illness didn't seem to change much. No difference in academics. If I feel stupid at school, I'm going to avoid going. It can come out in psychosomatic kinds of ways. It comes out in, like, I don't feel good at school, but my stomach hurts. And it does actually hurt, but the cause of it is because you don't feel good about school. So they weren't really clear around differences in age groups. They were just trying to look at, when we see chronic absenteeism, what are the causes of it?
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that. Looks like we have another question that just came up, and we'll take this as our last question just for the sake of time, but do invite you to also continue to email us and share with us your questions with Harmony. Is there a specific place where a participant can find more information about the M&M program and the implementation of it? I did put the website for the school in the chat. Demetrius, can you speak to that if there are any other resources you'd recommend?
Yes. I'm sorry, repeat the question for me, please.
If there's a resource where they can go to get specifically more information on what you called M&M.
Oh, yes. Dr. Fisher, do you have a book on that?
I do not. We modeled it after some of the mentoring programs. We read some things around mentoring. If you look up mentoring programs online, you will find some general guidelines of matching, like weekly contact is the recommendation. You do not have to meet them all as a group. You can meet them one-on-one. So we followed some of those general mentoring guidelines.
Okay. Thank you so much. And you'll see if you look back at the chat that we put some of Dr. Fisher's recommended books that really are in line with the topics that we've talked about today. So please check out all of the resources we've shared with you. And for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and jump back in. I have a few more slides for you. If you have any other questions, I know that our panelists are answering them through the question and answer right now. So you can expect to receive an answer to your question. All right. So again, we want to thank everyone for being here today. We appreciate particularly Dr. Fisher and Sarah and Demetrius. We appreciate your time. We also just want to remind you, as was said, that Harmony Academy provides multiple resources and an entire digital no-cost curriculum available to you. And within that, we provide a comprehensive curriculum of pre-K through 6 students. We also include Harmony Out of School Time, which are resources for out of school contexts, as well as support for Harmony at home. And then we also have available our Harmony Professional Learning, which is over 80 modules that are no cost, self-paced modules for pre-K through 12 educators. And that also includes whether you're in the classroom or whether you're any faculty or staff within a school or even out of school. So it provides support for all of the adults that are engaged in this work for students. So I do want to invite you to check out our Harmony Professional Learning if you haven't done so. And then finally, I would like to let you know about something very exciting that we have just launched this month, which we're calling it Level Up with Harmony Academy. We've heard your feedback, and there have been many educators that have said, we love all of the no-cost curriculum resources available for the platform, but we're hungry for some tangible kits as well. We heard you, and we have some exciting things for you. So you'll see that now available is our Harmony no-cost curriculum through digital resource will always be available, but we also are now offering Harmony classroom kits, Harmony out of school kits, as well as Harmony at home kits. And if you are interested, they are now 20% off now through June 30th on our website, and you can just go to harmony-academy.org in order to find them. And then another very exciting thing is, with Dr. Fisher as the lead on this, we actually are now providing, developed by Dr. Fisher, I should say, our classroom kits actually include literature guides, which are full of lessons developed in collaboration to help support the social and emotional and academic learning of students, specifically through popular trade books that teachers already have in their classroom. So those literature guides are an exciting new addition to our classroom kits that you can purchase. And as always, if you haven't been on our Harmony portal in order to learn more about the program, we invite you to do so. You can either find all of the resources that were discussed by hitting that QR code or go to mylearningportal.org. All you need to do is to scan the code. And as always, we are here to support you. So you may always feel free to email us if you have any questions. I do also want to remind you of a couple of other cool opportunities that we have coming up. We are excited to give you a special opportunity to dig even deeper into Harmony through a couple of new opportunities, and that includes joining our Harmony Academy. Friends and family and communities can share their stories. So you can see there on the left-hand side, if you scan that QR code, we would love to hear how you're using it, how it's working for you, and all of the opportunities that you've been able to provide your students through the use of Harmony. So please take a moment to share your stories with us. And then on the right side, you'll see that there's another QR code. And we're excited to invite you to apply to be part of our educator advisory group. And your expertise and experience is really what drives the work that we do here at Harmony. And so we would love to collaborate with you to learn more about how we can guide our comprehensive research-based curricula and resources. So if you're interested in applying to be a part of this advisory educator group, we invite you to please apply by April 15th, and you can use the QR code on the lower right-hand side of the screen to sign up. And then you can just follow the links for information about the stipends if you're selected. And on that note, I'd like to again thank you very much, Dr. Fisher, Sarah, and Demetrius. We appreciate your time, and we are grateful for your wisdom and all you've shared. We thank all of you for being here today. And again, just remind you that, please feel free to visit our website and know that we are always here to support you should you have questions. And thank you very much.
Thank you.